Hi guys, welcome back to Battle with the Lad. This is Mujela Olua, and today we want to talk about a coroner's inquest. I mentioned in the video that we did on corporate governance, which is the last video, that in the next episode we're going to be talking about a coroner's inquest, and that's because a magistrate at last month, thereabouts, 2 months ago probably, mentioned to me that we should talk about a coroner's inquest on BTW just to shed some light on it, and that's because currently in Nigeria, or recently rather, a musician died in very controversial circumstances. And as we speak, at the time of recording this video, a coroner's inquest is ongoing in Lagos State, Nigeria, regarding the death of that musician. The next adjourned date is 7th of November, which is next week, Tuesday. So just so you understand what the coroner's inquest is and what exactly is being done, we're going to talk about that in this video. And of course, it's good for law students, it's good for laymen, and it's good for lawyers to understand what a coroner's inquest is all about. Now, a coroner's inquest is a judicial inquiry into the cause of a person's death. Here's how it happens. When someone dies, ordinarily, people live and then they die. But sometimes some people die in controversial circumstances, unnatural circumstances, suspicious circumstances. When that happens, a request can be forwarded to the coroner's courts, or to the chief coroner of a state in Nigeria to conduct a coroner's inquest into the cause of the person's death. So basically, we're trying to find out who died, why did they die, that is the circumstances surrounding their death. We're trying to look at when did they die, what caused their death, and where did they die. So that's what a coroner's inquest is all about. It is not a trial. The coroner's inquest does not apportion liability or culpability on anyone. They do not have the power to do, or it does not have the power to do that. What it just tries to ascertain is the circumstances surrounding the death. It's basically a fact-finding tribunal, trying to find out how and why and when and where and what caused the deceased death. And this is for situations where the deceased has died in unusual, sudden, violent, or controversial circumstances. A coroner is the presiding person or president of a coroner's court. A coroner in Nigeria is usually a magistrate or a judicial officer of magistrate level. So they preside over the proceedings, and basically they sit on the set date, and then interested parties come to court, and then the people that have been invited, the witnesses, also come to court. That is people that are linked to the deceased, and people that have that had interactions with the deceased, just around the time of the deceased death, and people that are connected to the deceased in such a way that they can say so much, about the deceased death, whatever they know about the deceased death. So they come to court and they say that you don't necessarily need a lawyer, for a coroner's inquest. That is, if you have been invited as a witness before the coroner's court, you do not necessarily need a lawyer, but you can go with one. So the way that it is done, that's what I've explained, the court is convened, and then the witnesses are called to the stand, and then they give evidence. They tell the court what they know about the deceased and the deceased death, and then questions are asked by interested parties. It could be lawyers, public interest lawyers who have probably written to the coroner's court to conduct the inquest, or it could be any other necessary or interested party. They can ask questions, and so the court basically draws facts from what the witness is saying to be able to arrive at the cause of the deceased's death. In Nigeria, currently, the coroner system law of 2007 takes care of coroner's inquest. You can look at it, especially if you look at sections 14 and 15 of that law. It provides the types of death that are investigable, by the coroner's court. Because like I said, it's a fact-finding court. It's an investigation. It is not a trial. So what happens? I've talked about that. Then when is it done? A date is set once the coroner's inquest request is acceded to. A date is set, and then it happens in a court. Usually they just use a law court because it's not a permanent court or a traditional court. It may not have a permanent courtroom, so they can use any court, maybe a magistrate courtroom, for this procedure, for these proceedings. And then when, of course, it's done in the normal hours of courts, in the day, during the day, and why. We've talked about why. Then what's the outcome? The outcome is that when the court has extracted facts or listened to all witnesses, the court comes up with a report that it forwards to the executive, that is the state, usually the governor or any other appointed authority for that. So the coroner draws, all the facts and all the information provided and the revelations that they get from the proceedings, and they forward it in form of a report that would also contain recommendations to the state, that is the governor usually. And for instance, if someone has died, maybe someone has been pushed down by a truck, for instance, and maybe the truck belongs to the state, and the person was pushed down, and maybe that kind of death was unprecedented. A coroner's inquest can be conducted. The police can request for it. Private citizens, public interest lawyers can request for it. When it's done, then the coroner will forward a report to the governor. The report could now say that for such trucks, let the state create a dedicated track on the road that will be for such trucks, such that people do not get kicked down by or get hit by such trucks again. Recommendations that can forestall that kind of death. Also coming out of a coroner's court, also coming out of a coroner's inquest could be recommendations for laws to be passed, for regulations to be made, and for just things that could be done by the states to forestall those kinds of death. So a coroner's inquest is basically an inquiry into death, the circumstances of a person's death. It is done not just in the interest of the family of the deceased, but in the interest of the general public. It's not your traditional court. It does not apportion blames. It does not fix culpability or liability on anyone or any parties or any suspects. It just fact finds, and then it makes recommendations and submits a report to the state. So that is what a coroner's inquest is. So for the musician's case, when the coroner's inquest is concluded, then the report will be forwarded to the state. It is not the murder trial. That is a separate affair and will be done in due time, I believe. So that's all I want to talk to you about in this video. Don't forget to buy my books, Inquest, On Your Marks, Get Set, Mediate, C'est la Vie, and a host of others, as can be seen in the link on the screen and in the description box. I will see you in my very next video. Don't forget to subscribe to those.